This is your captain, John Cook speaking. We've reached our cruising altitude, and I've just turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. Our estimated time of arrival in Anchorage is 1 a.m., so we've got a long flight ahead of us. I hope you enjoy it. Our flight attendants will be serving dinner shortly. Thank you.
It was Christmas Eve, 1959. A lot of the passengers on the nearly full plane were traveling home to spend the holidays with their families. It was a smooth and quiet flight. The flight attendants had just finished picking up the trays and were in the galley putting things away when the first buzzers sounded. One of the flight attendants went down the aisle to check. When she came back, she looked surprised. "It's amazing," she said. "Even on a smooth flight like this, 2 people have gotten sick." "20 minutes later, nearly half the passengers were sick, violently sick. Several were moaning and groaning, some were doubled up in pain, and 2 were unconscious. Fortunately, there was a doctor on board, and he was helping the flight attendants. He came to the galley and said, "I'd better speak to the pilot. This is a severe case of food poisoning. I think we'd better land as soon as possible." "What caused it?" asked one of the flight attendants. "Well," replied the doctor, "I had the beef for dinner, and I'm fine. The passengers who chose the fish are sick." The flight attendant led him to the cockpit. The door was jammed. Together they pushed it open. The captain was lying unconscious behind the door. The co-pilot was slumped across the controls, and the engineer was trying to revive him. The doctor quickly examined the 2 men. "Can you land the plane?" the doctor asked the engineer. "Me? No, I'm not a pilot. We've got to revive them," he replied. "The plane's on automatic pilot. We're okay for a couple of hours." "They could be out for a long time," said the doctor. "I'd better contact ground control," said the engineer. "Maybe you should make an announcement and try to find out if there's a pilot on board," the doctor suggested. "We can't do that," the flight attendant said. "It'll cause a general panic." Suddenly she remembered something. "One of the passengers. I overheard him saying that he'd been a pilot. I'll get him." She found the man and asked him to come to the galley. "Didn't you say you used to be a pilot?" she asked. "Yes. Why?" She led him to the cockpit. They explained the situation to him. "You mean you want me to fly the plane?" he asked. "You must be joking. I was a pilot, but I flew single-engined fighter planes, and that was 15 years ago. This thing's got 4 engines. Isn't there anybody else?" he asked. "I'm afraid not," said the flight attendant. The man sat down at the controls. His hands were shaking slightly. The engineer connected him to air traffic control. They told him to keep flying on automatic pilot toward Anchorage and wait for further instructions from an experienced pilot. An hour later, the lights of Anchorage appeared on the horizon. He could see the lights of the runway shining brightly by a lake. Air traffic control told him to keep circling until the fuel gauge registered almost empty. This gave him a chance to get used to handling the controls.